Today's chat is brought to you by the support of all our Twitch subscribers. Through the patronage you provide the Focus Fire chat team through the Twitch platform, we are able to provide you with the weekly podcast as well as the website and other aspects of Focus Fire chat. If you have any interest in becoming a subscriber of the FFC and gaining access to some exclusive features over in the Discord server, please be sure to visit our Twitch account and click on the subscribe button. If you're an Amazon Prime member, remember that you do have a free subscription to Twitch every month that can be used for this. And for those of you who are already subscribers, thank you again for your generosity. You may have heard the whispers of guardians gathering in the shadows, exploring the mysteries of this world and the worlds which surround us. We are all in search of truth. Sometimes we need to focus that search, focus that fire. And so we come together. Join us. Join the discussion. Welcome to Focused Fire Chat. Welcome to Focus Fire Chat, recorded live on October 18th, 2019, over on twitch.tv/FocusFireChat. As always, I want to give a big shout out to our live chat here with us tonight. Thank you so much for joining us once again. This week's episodes are going to be focused around exploring Ecdysis. This particular episode will serve as what we have come to call the intro session of the week's exploration. Before we go any further, however, let's run through a quick introduction of who all we have with us on the show. As always, this is your host, Blue Crew 86.
And this is Aphrodite's heir to Saladin's ire, Green-Eyed Musical. What? See, I didn't mess it up this week. I got it.
Heir to Saladin's ire.
Uh-huh.
That family tree makes no sense.
Because Aphrodite made Saladin mad by throwing him, because you don't toss a dwarf.
But Saladin's not a dwarf?
He's not that, he's not very tall. Our Guardian's taller than him. Did you know that? Do I have a list? I absolutely write these things down before I say them. Absolutely. Every week I come up with a few of them. I'm actually scrambling to come up with my second one for the advanced episode later in this evening's recording. So
I love chat's just ellipsis. Do you have a list?
Yeah. No,
all right. I
write it down.
Okay. I'm like, all right. Okay. So last but definitely not least, in the hot seat as guest co-host, we have our good friend DancingViru. Viru, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. Still recovering from that list comment.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, definitely. Going? Pretty good. Usual introductory question next for you, actually, is where can we find you out on the internet?
Just at DancingViru everywhere. Twitter, Twitch, I stream every now and then. I would say that's it. Probably like a few like game accounts, like client-specific game accounts.
Mm-hmm.
Also usually the same, DancingViru. Yeah.
Nice.
Perfect.
Is there a location we can find you more often than not? Are you more active on Twitter or Discord or any place like that? If somebody wanted to reach out and say hi.
I would say Twitter and Discord, like the same level.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Blue. Can I?
Yes, I was gonna say. I was just gonna say we'll post the link to the Twitter account over on our show notes when the deep dive segment goes live later this week. But yes, Green. I think Green has questions.
Okay, question 1: what is your favorite Destiny lore or story?
I would say anything that has to do with Golden Age, especially the ones that like converges with what's happening right now, or like the characters that's are kind of involved with it. or do the same thing like characters did in the Golden Age. Something that I found really interesting, for example, was if you compare like the discussions the Ishtar scientist had about the Vex, the significance of their simulation capabilities,
Mm-hmm.
and then back to the comics, the Speaker and Osiris. I do kind of like these the little where the writers. I don't know if that's their intention, but it comes to me like the history of humanity repeating itself.
Yeah, very cyclical at times.
Yeah. That's the kind of a vibe I'm getting every now and then. Other than that, I'd say back in Destiny 1 Vanilla, it was the Ares 1. That was my
Oh
favorite.
yeah, with Hardy.
Yeah, because it was like there was something magical about it. Probably because of the very first cutscene
Mm-hmm.
that's tied to it, but also it's this curiosity and how he's so optimistic about approaching the traveler, and also a little bit anxious. And something that struck with me in towards the end when he says he's happy how everything turned out so well.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the next cutscene then was Ghost wandering around in a post-apocalyptic old Russia.
Oh yeah.
That was like such a contrast, between Jacob Hardy assuming that everything turned out right and well, and it makes me that's one of the feelings I had back then,
Well, even
okay,
the
wait,
contrast
yeah,
between the Ares mission story to the Black Armory story, and
oh
how
yeah,
very different the perspectives were with Henriette and
yeah,
Hardy.
yeah, definitely, yeah.
What did you think of the new information we got with the K1 team through the collector's edition booklet?
The collector's edition. So I haven't finished reading the Revelation
Mm-hmm.
in game, but yeah, I found some. I don't know who it was who was kind enough to put a link on. Because I wanted to order the collector's edition, but it just I was too late, unfortunately. It was sold out, and I'm kind of pissed about it. But other than that, I really enjoyed it because. So here's the thing: I'm really like disconnected from my origins, from my
Mm-hmm.
parents' origins because of stuff that happened. So I'm always glad when I can when I see like elements of that origins like depicted in a different way in something that I actually love.
Mm-hmm.
So mention of Sri Lanka was awesome. And that even though it barely touches on what the commander there is doing,
Mm-hmm.
but when she talks about the applied philosophies and religions, it's kind of awesome to to see that. And um, yeah, it's I find it fascinating. I think Seth Dickinson he explained it on Twitter a few weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
He wanted to show how religion evolved in Golden Age and how it's now more of a way to approach science instead of abandoning science, which is quite awesome.
Yeah, it's an interesting perspective on the development of not only a culture, but how we utilize things such as religion and how a
Yeah,
society in the future may or may not utilize it.
definitely. Yeah, and another favorite topic is the Nine. So I'm quite excited.
Yay! You know, the thing I wanted to ask you on top of that is, were you always into the stories of different like franchises, or was Destiny your introduction to it, or what was your introduction into lore exploration?
It was so when it comes to games, it was Destiny, definitely. I had like some moments with Pokemon.
Okay.
I loved like reading the Pokédex entries to learn more about the Pokemon. Especially, sometimes the other version had a different entry, so I went to the internet to look it up and just to see like something that I found fascinating, but not in a scale as it is with Destiny right now. Because something that I love about fiction is when elements of nature and medieval stuff gets like mixed with futuristic sci-fi and even like fantasy stuff, and Destiny really scratches that itch for me. So yeah.
That's awesome. Okay, so here I'm kind of dreading this because I kind of think I know what the answer is to this, but what is your primary class you play in Destiny?
Warlock, yeah.
Yeah. It's okay. It's okay. I forgive you.
It's a race of probability. Eventually, one was going to show up.
I know, it's fine. I was doing real good.
It's okay, Greenie. You don't have to forgive me because I don't need it.
Yes, you fit right in. You fit right in. It's fine.
Throughout Destiny 1 and up until recently, actually, I only played with one character, and that was my Warlock. Because now that Destiny 2 is free to play, when I try to like walk my new friends through Destiny, I decided to open up these new character slots and for Titan and Hunter.
Very nice. Very nice.
Here's the thing: I don't really get the debate regarding classes. It's
they're all fine.
Yeah, I know. It's just sometimes it's a little bit too much for me. And all that, I would understand if it's about the different orders within the same class, but it's I don't know. It's
I think it's akin to being in school and having the football players versus the rugby players versus the swim team. Like they're all jocks in their own way, but they're all very different in their approaches to how they play and like their personalities that tend to gravitate towards them. So they're all athletic.
Hang on. Okay. So who's who in this analogy? Because I'm completely confused now.
I wasn't trying to put it like directly to. I was trying to think of three sports that maybe in a high school.
Like football, okay. Rugby, I don't really see where we're going with this one. Swim team.
That's the Warlocks. What? Don't you know? That's the Warlocks.
Oh, okay.
I don't know what. I was mostly just going to have three different sporting groups that would be very dynamically different, but sure, we'll make it a Destiny connection too. I don't know.
And what school, what school has football and rugby?
I don't know. No. I was thinking European football. I was thinking what we call soccer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I wasn't thinking like both football and
we're turning the tables on Green.
Yeah.
Turn from interrogation of Viru into Green. What are you talking about?
I don't know. I'm drinking water tonight. Maybe that's the problem. All right. I'm done with questions. Let's move on.
Oh man. So, well, I know she said she's done with questions, but she did put out a poll on the community.
I did.
And she remembered this week. So she was kind enough to ask the community. So how did everyone do on it wasn't really a pop quiz. Was this one the pop quiz one, or this one was kind of a fill in the blank? or a show your work.
Yeah, it's more of a show your work, which I tend to enjoy a little bit more. The question was, with the release of Shadowkeep and all the information therein, do you think that the Nine have a hand in what we're going through on the moon? Why or why not? And it's more of an opinion piece to see if people, how the general community thinks about the Nine. More so is more of me conducting a science experiment rather than really truly trying to get a lot of really deep thought answers, because at this point the Nine have been this group that has shown up for the Drifter, essentially. That's all that we've really seen them as far as in-game characterizations. We've got a lot of information about them outside of the game in the lore, but how many people would actually know that, hey, the Nine don't have anything to do with the Hive that we know of yet? And technically, they don't have anything to do with the Vex that we know of yet. And so I had a few interesting answers, and I picked 3 at random. One of them is from our own member in chat right now, Screwball. And he said, I wanted to say no, considering I don't think there's a connection between the Hive and the Nine, but I'm unsure about the Vex. Can the Nine affect them? ? Is there any interaction between the two, or are they operating on totally different levels? So kind of what I was saying, we don't have a direct correlation between the Nine and the moon, or the Nine and the Vex at all at this point, but just to see where everybody's at. And we had at ARFNOT, ARFNOT. He said the Nine have set everything up from the beginning. They created everything from the darkness to the light. It's like their idea of massive social media experiment. Blame the Nine, like hashtag blame the Nine. And then Rich Widdowson said, I love that there are 2 conflicting sides of the Nine. The light and the dark are similar. Could the dark give them what they want? ? So that one actually took the whole question of, are they attached to what's going on the moon, and just took it one step further and being like, if the darkness is here, can the Nine utilize them? And that's kind of where I want to throw it back to you guys. What do you think of that concept?
I'll let Viru go.
First of all, I think the Stolen Intelligence lawbook tried to make a connection, but I don't really see like a continuity. Maybe it's still coming. I don't know. But wasn't there like something? What was it? I think the Cocytus gates was like emitting, was having like emissions of molecules, and apparently like the same kind of molecules appeared on Hellmouth.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, I don't think there. I have a feeling. So, but that's like my spinfoil territory, and it has a lot to do with how the voice that's speaking to us in the Forsaken subclass mission, like the same kind of voice is talking to, like in the Invitation of the Nine, is talking to the emissary, which made me think that the original voices on Io, not the Traveler, the Nine. And
interesting. So when we get our super, the Nine are talking to us in kind of the spinfoil that you have for that?
Yeah, or at least trying to talk to us through quotes and phrases that we do know. One of them being the thing about the Black Garden. So if that's the case, then I feel like maybe they tried to either warn us or hint at us. But I also, like, throughout the season of the Drift, I had the feeling that the Nine just wants to. So they want us to succeed, but not necessarily like guide us through. They want us to like struggle and then like evolve through that. And that's why I think there will be like no other influence from the Nine during this season. I feel like they just want us to struggle for a while. Yeah.
I mean, Blue, what are you thinking?
I see what that. Full disclosure, I haven't finished the campaign, so I have no idea. But I see what you're saying as far as like the 9 wanting us to struggle, like because they're always I don't know if it's necessarily them teaching or if or they're still also trying to figure out what's going on as well, because we know with the stolen intelligence, they have a lot of issues with existing in our reality as compared to their own. We've mentioned this a couple times, but like the whole concept of entropy, the whole concept of degradation of material it's really not something something that they have necessarily seen. As far as like the concept of them expecting struggle and stuff like that, the other thing that I think is worth noting is that we do have indications that there is a schism within the 9, as far as there are 2 primary groups that are if I remember correctly, they're working to the same goal. They're just taking different paths. One is,
and I think that's what Rich was saying in his comment.
Okay.
Is that there are 2 conflicting sides of the 9, which granted, I don't know if they're actually conflicting, but there's 2 different approaches, like you're saying. So, I don't know. Do you think that do we even know what their goal is at this point? Is it to actually exist on our side? That's the other thing.
I mean, ultimately, we know like we supposedly know their major goal is because they are trying, oh man. It's not Ecdysis. I think it's Dust, where they talk about the threat of the 9 is the problem is that if we basically stop existing or we stop thinking about them, basically they stop existing. Like they are separate but connected to our reality. They require us to exist. They're like a symbiotic parasite.
Neil Gaiman's American Gods turned up to Destiny.
Yes and no. Whereas in American Gods, they're kind of more like a tulip. These the 9 are not, like, it's not a psychological link insofar as much as I got that it was like it was an actual, like, they are derived from the aether basically of our reality. So if our reality ceases to exist, they technically are still chained to it. So what their ultimate goal is how do you break the chain without killing themselves? Yeah, and chat's talking about that as well. They whether that's to become, Black Flag says become complete. Dino is saying, they want to live apart from us, and Coordinator is, we are their battery. We are the source of their existence currently. And so they're trying to figure out in their own way how to sever the tie without severing everything, if that makes sense. Because again, in their existence, it's not, there's no entropy. Like there's no there, and when I say entropy, what I mean is like the degradation of material over time. Like when we, in reality, let's say, we're born, humans are born, and then from the minute that we're born, we're in the process of dying. Like it's kind of, that's just the pragmatic truth of existence, is as you go forward in time, your shell deteriorates. Deterioration is a real thing. Within the realms that have been described as belonging to the 9, within that dust realm, there is no entropy. It's a binary circuit. It's like either you exist or you don't exist, which is problematic, because if you don't exist, then you can't, like, there's no, like, a human being, if we get sick, we can work towards getting healthy. The figures of the 9, it's like either you exist or you don't. There's no recovery from that. It's an on or off switch, which I think is where the research into like the entropy with Cocytus gates, where they're creating arguably creating new life and sending it through and learning from that process. We see the evolution of their thought process through that particular entry in the stolen intelligence. They're trying to transcend their existence. They're doing the same thing humanity is doing, but they're doing it on a different level because they exist on a different level.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
And I feel like they also the Nine don't understand that there's like multiple layers of existence.
Yeah, and
Right.
I kind of get they're kind of like it makes me think that they're kind of two-dimensional. Not like lesser, but they exist on a two-dimensional frame, whereas we exist on a three-dimensional existence.
Well, they exist on a binary process.
Right. Well, that's
Like,
what I mean. It's like, and I think that's what
it's
Viru
just
is kind of
on and
mentioning.
off.
It's like,
right.
It's really funny if you've ever seen Inside Out. There's a part in the movie where they're being reductioned. It's a hilarious part, but they have to go through a reduction tunnel, and as they go through the tunnel, someone turns it on, and they start getting reduced into different dimensions. So they go from a 3D to a 2D to a 1D, and then they start like decomporalizing before they get through. But it's like watching that transition, you kind of get a sense of, three-dimensional, you have arguably six directions. You have forward, backwards, right, left, up, and down.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you're 2D, you have forward and backwards. Like that's
Mm-hmm.
it. Like you've been restricted to a significant level. Which is where you get the arguments of if you can ever exist in a four-dimensional, that's arguably even, a quintillion more. But that's where your difference is. Your existence is on a 2D plane. You're interacting with a 3D plane that's going to take a little bit of calculation differences to get used to. And I think for that might be what you're kind of mentioning too, is like they're existing on a flat plane where they think everything's like a flat surface when it's actually a multi-level surface.
Yeah. It's also they're kind of simplifying, or at least that's what I'm getting simplifying the meaning of existence, especially when it comes to like us dying. Something that struck me is what when who was the cryptarch dust? Lavinia?
Yes.
Something. Yeah. Where she sees the records of what Skolas was saying.
Mm-hmm.
That was very, very interesting. It's also like on a side note, very interesting how Skolas like changed. Like,
yes, very
as a personality. How he actually he was like kind of talking for us, and that was very weird, like really weird. But yeah, the thing that he was saying, he was under the assumption that the Nine, by releasing him, they didn't understand what the consequence was, and that's where I'm getting at with the concept of death. I feel like they think if we die, if a normal human dies, there's still like after death there's some sort of an existence, but they don't see that there's a difference. They don't see that there's a difference between these two.
Example for them to know what entropy is, because Guardians don't necessarily quote unquote die. Like,
well, and that's also a good point too, because they mention there's one group particularly. Well, hang on. Let me pause real quick. Let's run through the main episode. Let's run through housekeeping notes real quick, just because I know we're going. I want to jump right back into this. So, last week we discussed updates concerning the infamous Crota Fire Team. If you're enjoying the show, please be sure to let us know by giving us a shout over on Twitter, leaving a comment on Podbean, or sending us a quick email at focusfirechat@gmail.com. Reviews or comments on where we can improve are always welcome. They let us know what we can do better to create a more enjoyable experience for everyone. To all of those who've sent feedback or left us a review, thank you. As many of you are aware, Focus Fire Chat is a community in which we offer the chance to dive into lore from within various titles and mediums with a special focus on the Destiny universe. Every Friday at about 10 p.m. Central, the podcast team gets together to stream a summary of the chosen topic for that week. The hope for this is to help encourage dives into aspects of game lore within both our Discord server and within the other communities we share the digital world with. If you're a fan of lore in all its various forms, be sure to also check out thelorenetwork.com, a central hub for content that covers a wide variety of different titles and mediums. Our full show notes for each week's topic will be posted here, so for the additional information or guest details, be sure to check the site out. Next week's topic is going to be Interrogation of the Damned. That being said, however, we still want to hear your thoughts about this week's topic. Be sure to weigh in over on Discord, and don't be shy in tagging any of the team in the conversation. We cannot wait to read what your thoughts are. For now, let's get back to the show. Okay, so what I was going to say is, on that concept is that it's interesting because there's those two groups, segregations, whatever you want to call them, of the 9. Mm-hmm. One of them is associated with alchemy. And when you talk about like the alchemy and types like that, they focus on like the energy or, like Full Metal. We talked about Full Metal Alchemist a little bit earlier. A really simple thing is like the concept of like exchanging energy and trading energy and, transmutation and stuff like that. Whereas if you're talking about the process of the transfer of energy itself, technically you can argue that even though the entity dies, the energy signature changes, but it's not destroyed. Like right. energy arguably can't, there's the argument that energy can't be destroyed.
Create or destroy energy.
Right. It's just reverberating differently.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I try to get at. I feel like they only see us as these energies.
Mm-hmm.
They don't realize that
they don't realize that the flavor differences are very important to us.
Yeah.
Flavor differences.
Well, I don't know how else to say it. Like it's the wave signature, I guess. Like
now I have an idea. Like some guardians taste like tiger's blood. Some
you know what
like
you can do whatever you want.
Fine.
Cole can take it and run with it. I'm gonna.
So, like, for example, if the 9 would have seen Toland in the past and would see him now, I don't think they see a difference.
Well, would they see?
No?
Oh, that's an interesting thing because would they recognize the difference in this signature, though?
Would it be a difference in the?
Or
because he's fleshy, but do they recognize him as thought because they are from a thought world? Or thought realm, or thought-like place.
Well, and I guess it would also depend on how granular they're looking, right?
Right.
Yeah, that's another thing. Yeah.
Interesting.
But yeah, that's what like the layers of existence, like even like after death. Wasn't that also like a? That's something the emissary said also, right? During the invitations, like when they talked about death, she says, "You don't even understand the meaning of that word."
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, yeah.
That's yeah.
So something I wanted to ask both of you: if we have new listeners who have never played Destiny, have never read any of the lore, how? Because I was trying to think of how to describe this, because one of my coworkers who might actually be listening in asked me, what are you talking about tonight? And without going into a huge amount of detail, I had a hard time coming up with what the 9 are in a really simplified, try to keep out as many Destiny-oriented words as possible. How would you describe what the 9 are to somebody who's never done anything in lore or read or watched any of the videos or anything?
Viru, you wanted to go first?
I can try.
It's difficult.
That's a fair response, sir.
I would describe the 9 as an unknown. No, not unknown. That's a little bit. So the 9 are a group of entities, like unknown kind of entities that seem to have some sort of sentience, who Oh man, that is quite difficult.
Right.
Who are like maybe what's the best, visually maybe not approachable, but they're kind of there. The like the nature of their existence is unknown, but we have like some law entries and evidence and like characters who like work for them, who want to interact with us, but the intention is still unknown. Well, kind of unknown, and it seems like they want to help us, but they don't know really. Like they don't understand our laws, our physics, and it is implied that they live through us. So I guess I would describe it that way.
Blue, you want to give it a shot?
I would, so Dino actually is kind of going along the lines that I was actually thinking as well. The best example that I could say is like the 9 are obviously going to be specific to Destiny, but in our parlance, in our reality, I would say think of the ancient Greek gods, especially the Olympians. They are entities that are above humanity, but are still weirdly flawed. And they have their own individuality, but they're not ephemeral, but they're ethereal. They're something that's not solid. They don't really exist in our plane. And so Dino right now is saying, the solar system's consciousness, given thought by the existence of life in the solar system. And it's very similar to my own understanding of them as well. Is again, they're kind of like that Tolnip description that you were description that you were talking about with the American gods. Like it's this Viru kind of said it, this entity that is there and is present but not present. And again, I kind of go back to the concept of the ancient gods. Like these are things that look over you, but they don't necessarily get involved. They can, but they don't necessarily do. And if they do, they can change quite a bit, or they could change just it's like, it's very fickle almost. But that's how kind of I would explain the 9 to someone who has like no grounding in Destiny. It's like, think of the ancient Olympian gods. Now, take out the deity-esque-ness, and that's the type of character the 9 kind of exist as.
Nice.
Yeah, so and they do identify themselves from the Fountain of Acleus, the night before Chaos, yeah.
The thing that I kind of said to kind of describe them is that in the game, there are higher powers. We are a pawn on a chessboard, and there are 2 players in some ways. Honestly, there are a lot more players than that, but the 9 are an unknown player rearranging the board at will. Like they are messing with everybody's gameplay.
Real quick, I have to correct myself. I think I said Tolnep, which is Battlefield Earth. I meant Tulpa, which similar.
That makes a little bit more sense.
Tolnep is completely different, and I am kind of like laughing at myself for bringing that whole concept of nonsense in. Tulpa is what I meant. It's the creature that's created via the psychological thought. It's a very interesting little mysticism paranormal creature. But yeah, sorry. I wanted to correct myself before I got too far, because I'm like, I think I just said the wrong alien, like the wrong thing.
Some days I just let you go.
Yeah,
I trust that you got to keep going. But
I appreciate that.
All right.
Listen, I appreciate that for most times.
You let me do that all the time, so it's
totally going to go look up Tolneps now and see if I can bring them back in.
Figure out a way to bring them back in. Like I meant to do this.
The Tolneps were so funny, but anyways.
But yeah, it's just an interesting thing, because the 9 are such we know so little, yet we have so much to talk about when it comes to them.
Right, and that's where I kind of go back to the ancient gods kind of paradigm, is because that is kind of the same. Like there was the legends, and all that, but really, from a human standpoint, especially during that time frame, they were like, I don't know, I know they get pissed off if we do this, so we don't do that because that seems to make the mountain blow up, right. and that's the sense of. I think that's kind of how I get the sense of in game, the mention of the 9 kind of, that's kind of the sense that I personally get when you see people kind of mention them, is like, they're like, we don't know. They're super powerful,
right?
But we don't piss them off. Well, what pisses them off? Oh,
we know that.
We know that doesn't make them happy. So don't do that. Like, I don't know about that.
Well, that's my follow-up question then. Back in D1, we thought they were this super powerful group, which in some ways they probably are still in many aspects because of some of the different things they've been able to pull off, which I still have no freaking clue how they did. The hull being one of them, Drifter's hull. Like, if they are just gravity, how did they make that happen? If they are just aspects of gravity, which is, I know, another discussion Chat had this last week in our Discord. But the 9, the way they've been portrayed lately within the lore, they're less all-knowing and all-powerful and more like a kind of almost a bumbling child, unsure of how to do anything. Like, they're still learning.
Well, and I think, I think that goes back to Cocytus, right? And that kind of to segue into Ecdysis, really. That is what they're doing with Orin and Zur or did we ever decide how to pronounce his name?
I don't think we did.
Okay.
Everyone just says Zur, which is fine.
I remember seeing that, and I remember
it's not right.
My opinion. Did you see me? My response? Yeah. I'm like, I just say something and Green translates it. That's all. That's my approach to it.
I just remember. I think, or it's very. I don't know. Viru. Do you have a pronunciation?
I feel like in Destiny 1 or maybe early Destiny 2, there was some NPC, like one of the idle dialogues mentioned his name, and I feel like it was Zur.
Yeah.
It might have been Lakshmi.
That's it. I mean, everyone's called him Zur for so long, but just because of the way it's written, it makes me think that they were intending for it to be a lot more exotic sounding than it actually is.
Right, and that's like Gjallarhorn or Yallarhorn.
Yeah, I think
technically it's Yallarhorn, but
I think Zur is fine. Zur is what I refer to as Mara's
BFF. Just T for team, nice BFF.
Word. Yep. Mara's wrath before Petra, which is true. Totally is.
But anyway. I mean, that's what I was going to say is like, so your idea of them like the bumbling blah blah blah, that's where you get that is their existence in our reality. Like, but then if you transcend into their reality, I imagine that's very much different, right?
Well, we don't know. We don't have any instances.
Well, I mean, technically we have dust, but take that worth a. I hate saying it, but take it worth a grain of salt because we don't really. Because the other thing that happens in dust is, I swear that's Savathun at the end, because the person, the old lady who gives her tea actually gives the name of Orin.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, okay, what's going on here? But
yeah,
I mean,
that's the vibe that I was getting.
I'm like, wait, hang on. Hang on just a second. You're a liar.
Yeah. I mean, we have other instances where the Witch Queen and everything come into play.
Right.
Interesting.
But as far as that, I think that's I get the feeling that that's where, figures the emissary, the trash collector, that's where they come in. Is because they are being used really as pseudo translator chips for the 9 to help teach them about this reality. Sorry, excuse me.
No, you're good. The thing is, though, is that as far as powerful influences, the things that we know about the Nine have quote unquote done, either through lore or through visions and game. You have the instance, the most recent one being the hull showing up on Drifter's ship. Like literally the Nine attaching that, or Orin or the emissary or whatever we're calling her at that point, attaching it to his ship. Like, is she the one doing it, or do they does it appear? Do they pull it from a wormhole and just stick it on there? If so, they have really kind of overkilled it as far as the tethers go, because you don't need that many. It's wasteful. Anyway, but we have that instance. The last one prior to that was more of the information we got about Skolas, which we mentioned earlier, which for people who never played D1, Skolas was one of the boss characters that we helped capture, and the Nine let him go. But the Nine let him go in Petra's prison of elders, which we fight. It's so convoluted, but the Nine basically affected that situation. So what kind of
which
powers do we know?
I have a feeling that the Nine at least have access to time because of that Skolas thing. So I still have a feeling the reason why they released Skolas is because they knew he would be going into the Vault of Glass, and then get interrogated by Mara when we capture him. And when what's the terminology he's using for Oryx?
What terminology?
Light snuffer.
It
was something that I don't know why that jumps to mind, but I swear it was something like that.
Yes, a light snuffer, a dark binder, something like that.
It was a descriptive.
Yeah. I think Mara saw that as a confirmation for what Eris told her. I think that's why the Nine released him, and as I mentioned earlier, didn't understand what that would cause, like the cause of like so many deaths. But yeah, it's
so here's an interesting thing, and this kind of goes back to a debate we had last week with Wicked, in so much as if the Nine are a binary, like they are a knowledge-seeking group, or they're trying to figure things out, that likely means they don't have I don't know, the best way to put it is they're very sociopathic. They don't have the social structure, or they don't understand the empathy factor, or do they understand the amount of deaths and the pain that they're causing people? Because we have that interaction with the Vision where Orin or the emissary is trying to explain to the Nine that Drifter doesn't understand. He's angry. This is what he's going to lash out. This is what he does. So
my one counter argument to that is just on the terminology. I agree with it. I agree with the concept. I hesitate to say that they're sociopathic though, because that's right. No. I would say that you can't. I mean, you can, but it would be akin to us being. If you look at an ant looking at a human, you can't. The ant can't call the human sociopathic because the human doesn't understand the concept of the ant's social constructs.
Right.
But then on the same level, if an ant tried to explain those constructs to a human, you would get a similar concept of frustration from both sides, because that realms of existence don't exist between the two.
There's the loss in translation aspect of it, but do you think that the Nine in their own realm, because of how binary it is, do you think they even experience something like empathy?
Yes. Because that's where you get the schism between the groups.
Gotcha.
Oh yeah, yeah, true.
That's the entire argument between the groups. Is one of them is saying it's not right to basically sacrifice humanity for lack of it's not right to like use up the battery of life that is our reality, whereas the other one is like, they're not necessarily saying it is right, but they're just saying, oh well, our existence means more, and we need to find a way to sever this tie regardless of the cost that it might do. Because the other thing is like, you know, it's a two-way tie, or it's a two-way street there. If they sever the tie with us to further their own existence, yeah, that might mean that they exist separate. But in the same vein that they can't currently exist without us, can we currently exist without them?
We don't know.
Right, and that's where I think a lot of that segregation kind of seems to stem from, is like, I get the sense that the darker of the two groups, the more sociopathic or the more apathetic of the two groups, is kind of saying, well, we don't care, they're not us. And the other ones are kind of like, well, like they aren't us, but it's like animal rights activist, right? It's like, and that's a terrible example.
That is a really, really bad example.
I'm gonna kind of double down on. I'm gonna get hate for this, but
yes,
but it's like a person who fights for animal rights says that it matters what, you know, whatever animal, you know, however that animal is being used, it still needs to be used in a humane fashion. I mean, and you have obviously extremes there, but in general, like taking a moderate on the two sides here, you know, a person who is sympathetic to an animal's plight, regardless of if that animal is being put in slaughterhouse or whatever, they would argue that it still needs to be treated humanely. Whereas a person who is for the opposite side, on the moderate side as well, says, oh, they're going to die anyways, it doesn't matter, we should just pack as many of them in there as we can. But you see what I'm saying? Like, one of them it's the human rights activists. God, I'm just getting myself in trouble in this one, aren't I?
Yeah, you are. I'm like, you're bringing up flashbacks of a video that I was forced to watch in college, Food Inc., where I sat crying in the library because of the chicken.
Black Flag, yes. To quote Ender from Ender's Game, how we win matters.
Yeah.
Like, and that's actually, yeah, it's one of the few things Orson Scott Card did well. But like, that's a good example too, because the war that Ender fought in Ender's Game, one of the reasons he did so well was because he cared about not just his own soldiers, but also who he was fighting against. He went in for the kill, for the one blow kill, the quick humane kill. Not that he balked from it, but he didn't torture them. He didn't like extend it to make it painful. And I think that's where you kind of get the segregation between the two groups of the nine. And I think that's where you see Oren especially kind of come in and be like the argumentative figure that we see, who starts out as Nasa and goes into Nasan and then becomes Oren. I think that process, because also remember when she becomes the emissary, final shape, and we kind of were talking, Dino and I were kind of talking about this a little bit. When she finally becomes that emissary figure, she not only sheds her guardianship, but she actually regains all the memories of all her previous existences.
Right.
And that's where Dino was saying, Dino's arguing that it's not necessarily Savathun. It probably is Oren fighting to save Lativa, or whatever the student Cryptarch is. She's actually trying to save her from Savathun because she's using the name Nasa.
Lavinia.
Lavinia, yeah. She's using her own name because it is her name. She is able to take up that name again.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I'm under that impression as well. I just thought like you meant that the one who introduced herself as Nazan.
Yeah. Sorry, So like, I think, I don't know. I'll have to reread Dust. I was reading Ecdysis, to be honest. So, but I remember when I was reading Ecdysis and I was looking up NASA, that entry from Dust popped up because she actually does introduce herself as Nasya. Like it's like,
Yeah.
So, I think we have a pretty decent introduction as far as what the 9 are, what we know of the 9 at least. Do we want to kind of wrap up the intro episode a little bit and then move into the advance?
Let's do some shout outs for the intro, and then for the advanced session, which, for those listening, will hit later this week on Friday. We'll actually, I think that would be a good opportunity to jump and go through the individual entries, because I think there's a lot of really cool stuff within the entries themselves.
Yes.
Shout outs. I guess I can go first. My shout out goes to a very odd place. Most of you know that I don't watch a lot of TV or don't watch a lot of movies or anything like that, but there is one show that is on currently, and it is a very bizarre thing for me to shout out for, but there's a reason for it. The Masked Singer is out, and they're currently revealing all of it. And my shout out actually goes to all the celebrities that are doing the actual singing, because it takes a lot of guts to get up on stage and sing in front of a live studio audience to be judged. It's just, and it doesn't matter if you're a celebrity or if you're just Joe Schmo on American Idol doing that. I think if you're getting up on stage and putting yourself in a situation where you're going to allow people to essentially judge you for your ability on XYZ, I think it takes a lot of guts, and almost more so for a celebrity doing that. So yes, my shout out is a very weird one to any of the people who are currently or have ever been on The Masked Singer. You probably never have ever listened to our show, but my shout out goes to you because it takes a lot of guts to do it, and well done.
But who's Ninja?
Oh my God, that was, I called that one. I told Julie, because we watched the show and we try to guess everything. I was like, I bet you anything that this is Ninja. And she's like, who? I was like, yeah, I this has gotta be. I've got a few other bets going on of a few other characters that are on there. I'm so far, I have 2 under my belt that I know. So yes.
I just love that. I just love that.
Donny
Lady Gaga.
Osmond last year.
Lady Gaga. Who's Ninja? What's Fortnite?
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. It's whatever. I think there's another YouTuber there right now too. Whoever Flamingo is, I think is a YouTuber as well. But that's just me.
I have no idea the words you just used.
It's fine. You don't need to.
Viru, what about
do you have a shout out?
I'd like to shout out a friend of mine who's a streamer on Twitch, Cassie Games.
Nice.
She's one of the friends who joined me in Destiny 2. Was able to convince her.
Welcome to the madness.
Hell yeah. And yeah, I've known her for quite a few years, but it's kind of this year we started playing together, mainly Apex Legends.
Nice.
Sometimes Call of Duty, but yeah, now we're like mainly playing Destiny, and it's awesome. And she feels very stressed out when we play Nightfalls.
Oh, I bet.
But yeah, she's getting there. And yeah, that's it for now.
Nice. Shout out to her. Thank you for joining us on the thing. In the game. It gets easier.
It gets easier.
Well, what is she playing? That's my first question.
She just it's kind of weird. She just I think she took over the character from Destiny 1.
Mm-hmm.
I still don't understand how that happened, because we're playing on Steam.
Oh, and she didn't link accounts. I wonder.
Yeah, I don't think she linked them, but she played Destiny 1 on Xbox, and I don't know, maybe she did, maybe she saw like a notification somewhere. I think new players get that notification that you can link your account or something. Maybe she did that. I can't remember, but yeah, it's weird how she was able to take over the character from Destiny 1 without having started playing Destiny 2 on Xbox, you know. That's the weird part. I don't know how that happened, but it did happen. But it's a warlock, so I'm sorry.
It's fine. Not everybody can be this awesome looking. I'm just gonna embody the stereotype. It's fine. Anyway, Blue, shut up.
Yeah, I actually have two. Which, ironically, one of them just showed up. Man at Arms. So I had I had a really big annoyance morning. Basically, YouTube's being YouTube, and I'm gonna not continue down that tangent because it will get very adult themed as far as my language goes, as far as my opinion goes on the way it's being handled. But Man at Arms actually kind of talked me down and walked me through a couple alternative options. So hopefully we'll still be able to get stuff over onto YouTube. And so that's largely thanks to him. But then also, this is more of a comical shout out, but Josh, or Infomage, who we've had on the show a couple times. So because Destiny 2 is free to play, Josh decided to roll up some characters. And the questions that I've been getting are amazing. Like, it's just, he's like, who is this dude and why is he so pissed at people? I'm like, oh yeah, that's because he's infected by Vex. Okay.
Oh, Asher?
Yeah. He's like, who's this random lady that's telling me to go ignite a forge? What's a forge? Like,
I really want you to like tweet these out, just like these random questions.
These are awesome.
It's so amazing. Right? I'm like, oh well, that's why are you doing that? He's like, I don't know. They told me to go do it. And I'm like, oh God. Oh no.
Let me just say this for like people who are quote unquote just starting the game, or even if you're re-rolling a character, dear God, Bungie, how many times do I have to go back and between both Benedict and gosh, who's the other one? Drifter. I had to go back and forth between Drifter and Benedict like 4 times in the tower. Then I had to go to like Ikora. I was running all over the place way more just with this new character than I did when I was doing the stinking Halloween event a few years ago when we were handing out candy to everybody. Like, it was ridiculous.
Yeah, the thing is, like, the thing that I got from it was like it's not really for those who are joining the new light. After the first mission, it kind of sounds like it's not super clear on what, like, if someone wanted to play through like chronologically the campaign, I don't think there's a lot of like clear indications to people who have like absolutely no idea what's going on.
Not yet.
Because when I talked to him, I was like, yeah, so what you should do, Red War, God, I always flip them. Curse of Osiris and Warmind. No, Warmind, Curse of Osiris, Warmind. I always flip them.
Curse of Osiris
Warmind, and then Warmind, and then Forsaken. And like some of those, so except for Forsaken, you can only get them from Holiday. But
Correct.
then there's quests that he's doing that are completely separate, but they reference things that happened in Forsaken and Season of Opulence. And so he's like, why is this guy yelling at me? I don't know why is she so mad at us? Why does she hate Guardians? Like, oh my God. Is she a robot or is she a person?
When I open up the new character slots for my friend Cassie, and like started playing with her, it was so confusing. Like, every time I had to like think for a moment before suggesting what to do. And there's like a gaming news podcast I listen to, Waypoint from Vice Games. They're awesome people. And they talked about it. One of the hosts is a huge Destiny nerd, huge lore nerd as well. And he got the other host to play it now that it's free to play. And even they said so. In one of my previous jobs, I worked as an interactive media designer. One of the tasks was to like come up with UI elements and design them. This new, kind of new system, this UI system for Destiny 2 New Light, it's terrible. It's a terrible onboard experience for new players.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, I'm expecting it
really
to get more polished. I mean, the entire concept of switching, I can't speak down because it's like you guys switch.
Could you imagine trying to switch the
Jesus Christ,
the style?
No, I mean, like, given.
The good news is, as soon as you drop a character, it's already.
Black Flag said someone on Reddit was trying to get their Quick Fang sword and they couldn't find Cade.
Yeah.
How do you get a Quick Fang sword now?
I don't know. I've
I
always had one as far as I can remember from D2.
I have too, but that's because we had Cade.
Right, yeah. But yeah, it's...
Man.
I'm expecting
it's also confusing because for second campaign, you don't pick that from Holiday.
Yeah, I don't think First Lights have access to it, right?
I don't know.
I think
you had to pay for
no,
it.
they don't have. They have some aspect from Forsaken.
Right,
like
they have the
access
maps. They have the maps in the the area.
Gambit.
Region Gambit, even Gambit Prime. Like most of the Forsaken Annual Pass content, they have access to. But not just like you come in as a new player and you learn all this campaign at the Holiday, and then where do I start Forsaken campaign? Which is just I think that's just as it was usually on like the first mission on Tangled Shore.
Yeah. The thing is, it's just interesting because they have no concept not only of what the world is, but now the world is just throwing them, just go explore. I think the first waypoint I got was to go do strikes, but there's no concept of what's going on in the strikes. Like, why am I doing strikes? What is this? And I can see why people are confused. I can see why it's been difficult.
Yeah, it's not the best onboard experience.
It's all right.
But
we should wrap up.
Yep. Let's just run real quick. We'll say goodbye, and then we'll go for the next episode. So, sound good?
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye.
With that, we'll begin to wrap the chat up. Thank you again to those over on Twitch for coming to spend your evening with us. If you'd like to join us for the live streaming of the episodes, please be sure to give us a follow over on twitch.tv/FocusedFireChat. Links to all our episode archives can be found at www.thelorenetwork.com. Please be sure to email us at focusedfirechat@gmail.com with any comments and or questions for the team concerning the podcast, and let us know how we're doing by giving us some feedback and a rating over on iTunes as well. So until next time, focus your fire and may your light shine bright.